All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nancy Connor with Novova, and I'm happy to welcome you all to today's Marching Forward Monday. Today we have three of our veteran business enterprises who will be presenting. And I'd like to just remind you that we're going to use the chat if you've got any questions that you'd like to bring up while presentations are going on. We'll also pause between each speaker to address any questions from the audience. Our first up today is going to be Mike Schuler with Veterans Alliance Resources. And Mike, you can begin to share your screen.
All right, very good. Thank you. And let me pull this down and go from the beginning. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
We can.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Nancy, and thanks to Novova for hosting this virtual event. Appreciate the opportunity to let myself and fellow veteran-owned businesses share information about our companies. Veterans Alliance Resourcing is a company that's involved in asset recovery services for IT, retired IT equipment. We work with companies around the world to help them disposition their material, handling it properly for data destruction, e-waste processing, and more importantly, value recovery. And we're very good at what we do. And I'll share information about our company, our history, and why we are pretty good at what we bring to the table for everyone. So a little bit about the organization. We'll cover as part of our overview, company history and our mission, talk about our executive team, share a little bit of information about the market we serve and how large it is, talk about the products we support, our global services within the US, as well as talking about our global ITAD services, and more importantly, our global remarketing services for the sale of used material. Also talk about our value proposition and key differentiators. So with that, share a little bit of information about the company. We were actually established in June of 2013 as a sales rep firm, predominantly representing the aftermarket services industry, parts companies, ITAD companies, labor companies, a number of other organizations involved with helping to support the post-sale support industry as a whole. My partner at that time and I had been in the industry for an extended period of time as sales executives, and we saw the opportunity to represent multiple companies in a way where we thought it would be complementary. The company, we were ultimately about 3 years into it, we were both hired back into corporate America, went back into corporate America, and then relaunched the company with a different partner structure as an IT asset dispositioning and product remarketing services firm in January of 2018. We are a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, of course. Our focus is on staffing with both military and industry veterans. And we like to find people that know IT equipment and are familiar with all the aspects of the secondary market. Our company mission is to help companies engage through resale and redeployment instead of recycling, taking the opportunity to engage in a way where end-of-life product recycling, lifecycle management is able to optimize their value recovery, while also taking care to mitigate any concerns related to data destruction, handling things like logistics for organizations, handling things like audit reporting, and environmentally responsible e-waste processing, which is quite important that stuff doesn't end up in a landfill. So a little bit about myself and my partner. We've been in the industry since 1981. Both of us, so a little bit long in the tooth, been doing this a long time, working for some of the largest companies in the world, selling off their material. I was with some of the largest rental lease companies for the first 13 years of my career. Then ultimately I went to work for one of the guys I sold for and helped grow that company to over $100 million operation, handling reverse logistics, dispositioning things like whole units. We were actually the largest parts supplier in the world for harvesting parts out of the secondary market material, shipping over 1 million parts a year in support of contracts like Best Buy and Sears and so forth for those extended warranty contracts. Been in the ITAD space as well. So I've been up and down the whole product lifecycle side, from the beginning of the product lifecycle to the end of the lifecycle, dealing with product resale and value recovery. My partner, Russell Jolie, our chief operating officer, has been running the service side of things. He ran global service operations for Radio Shack, had 4,000 technicians reporting to him, and he is a master at understanding everything it takes to handle the logistics, the processing, and material recovery through applying judicious service to material. A little bit about our market we serve, just to give you an example of just the sheer volumes. From 2009 to 2015, the average deployment per year of computers alone was 320 million computers. In 2015 to 2020, that dropped to an average of 270 million units a year. That's a lot of material to be dispositioned as it retires through its life cycle. If you look at where the industry begins as a whole, it begins the moment a customer brings something back to Walmart or Costco as a return. Average returns in the retail market is about 6%. Average returns in the corporate market is about 1.5%. So that starts the whole return cycle. It moves then into the trade-in cycle. Most of you are quite familiar with getting all these offers from your cell phone companies regarding trade-ins and so forth. Well, my partner was instrumental in putting that in place through the Radio Shack operation he created, processing 10 million repairs a year. He set up 6 of the 7 major carriers for handling trade-ins. And now that's an ongoing program with the company he actually founded, was an independent organization outside of Radio Shack, which was later acquired and is now part of FedEx, and a very, very big organization. It processes millions and millions of phones every year. Then you have the tech refresh cycle, where materials rotated generally around the 3 to 4 year mark. Active refreshing happens a lot with people that are concerned about the technology that they put in front of their personnel, so they get the most out of their people with optimized technology that can process information quickly. The financial services industry is a perfect example of this. It's not unusual to see a 3-year refresh rate in the scientific, the financial quarters, and so forth. Then we move into ITAD, and that's the thing that we're most familiar with, where we see the rotation of material from about the 3-year to 8-year point. So a lot of companies think that recycling is the only option at 6 years. That's really not true. More often than not, we're able to get good recovery on material as deep as 10 years into product. And if you get into other technologies like test equipment, that technology can actually go on for 20, 25 years and get very good recovery. When I worked for the rental lease companies, one of our largest portfolios, we had a $100 million portfolio we had to refresh every few years, but electronic test equipment was actually able to be deployed for dozens of years and still get good recovery at the end of its life cycle, because a oscilloscope or a spectrum analyzer really didn't change in technology from the original deployment. Then finally, there's recycling. And the industry as a whole is about a $500 billion industry. It would certainly rank as one of the largest economies in the world. So the secondary market is just huge. And tapping into it, knowing how to navigate those waters, is what we do at Veterans Alliance Resourcing. So what are some of the products we support? We get into computers of all types, servers, data center equipment, mobility products, smartphones, tablets. We get into networking gear, telecommunication equipment, voice over IP phones and PBXs. We get into electronic test equipment. By the way, my background was calibration metrology out of the Marine Corps. I actually worked at a level 3 lab, so it was unusual for a Marine to have a lab coat and controlled temperature environment, but that was my original background. Had about 2.5 years of electronic engineering training at Air Force and Navy school, so it was quite nice. We also get into peripherals, surplus no OEM print toner. All these things provide an opportunity for a company to actually get value recovery on their technology investment, and we help them do that. So a little bit about the things that we bring to bear in the U.S. We operate from a 5,000 square foot warehouse and tech center out of Maynard, Texas, near Austin. Very good central location for taking in material in the US. One of the services we provide is anybody that has a list of equipment, we'll give them a quick valuation. We'll give them a product and project valuation as a whole, so they know what their net recovery is likely to be. As the material comes in, we give full cataloging, so you don't have to give us any of the information, because we'll capture all that with our ERP system. And it's a world-class ERP system, by the way. We'll also do handling of logistics. If people need us to help pack and retrieve material, we can accommodate that. We've got a deployed tech team across the US we use, with about 20,000 personnel that we've engaged with. Very economical transportation material. Generally can transport material for about $1 to $2 per device. So it's quite efficient. And then once it gets in, we do data sanitization and destruction, and give a certificate of data destruction for all of our clients. We give a complete audit detailing right down to the component level what inventory is. And then finally, we give a full report on what we sell the material for. So what are our differentiators? Actually, I'll go into telling you a little bit more first off about our global ITAD connections. Veterans Alliance Resource, in the name, not only plays into being military veterans, but industry veterans. And alliance resourcing is a reference to the fact that we believe in alliances and all the connections we've fostered over the last 4 decades. We use those connections to help people engage successfully with the secondary market. So we have locations around the world that help us disposition and process material. We have operations in Europe, Canada, Australia. We also have lined up India and Malaysia, and we've got Costa Rica and Mexico for Latin America coming online. That allows us to process economically any material around the world. More importantly is the fact that we've cultivated over these last 4 decades resale channels that take that wide, diverse type of material that we get in from typical corporations and schools and others, where we can actually deploy it and sell it for more, because I've got over 2,500 used equipment dealers over the world that take that material in any condition. So it makes it a lot easier for us to get top dollar. We recently had a project for 11,000 units from the federal government, and a lot of companies had said they weren't interested because we're pretty beat up material. Well, we got them over $1 million for the material. So what's our value proposition? Well, first off, our dealer channel is second to none. I've been in this industry for 4 decades. I work for some of the largest pools of assets. One of the pools of assets I was involved in is Dell's lease returns. I handled that for 7 years, handling 40,000 PCs a month. That's a lot of material to sell off and disposition. That facilitated, between that, the rental companies, and the company I helped build at Service Electronics, we were able to find homes for material, harvesting for parts, all the different combinations of what the secondary market brings to bear. Unlike most organizations that are vertical players, we're a diverse product generalist. Highest net recoveries paid on material. We have no fees. That's one of the things we're very proud of. We don't charge for audit. We don't charge for data destruction. We don't charge for e-waste processing. We get our money out of the shared revenue. We're quite cost effective. We're also one of the first companies in the world to be R2V3 certified, certified by CIRI. We're also ISO certified, 14,001, 45,001, 9,001. We're one of the first 50 companies in the entire world with these combinations of certifications. And we believe in making sure that you get not only the most money for the equipment, but more importantly, it's great for the environment. The redeployment of equipment is 1/7 the carbon footprint of recycling. So this is a great way of actually having a positive impact on the environment, as well as to your bottom line. So with that, that's the presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. And if anybody has an IT director or CIO that wants to connect us, we'd love the opportunity to engage and compete for your business actively. If you're an MSP or a service provider or reseller, we'd love the opportunity to work with you strategically as your end-of-life product lifecycle management partner. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. Before I open up for questions, I have one. Would you talk a little bit about more about the data destruction? You talked about, you get a receipt, customers get a receipt from you about what does the receipt tell them when it's?
What it does is we can actually give it, go ahead, we can give it down to the serial number level, not only tell them which hard drive came out of which unit, so there's an association. If they want that level of detailed reporting, we can provide it. We do a NIST 888R protocol, which replaced the DoD wiping protocol. It's actually better. And we give a certificate of data destruction backed by a multi-million-dollar insurance policy. We've never had a breach, nor will we ever. We are very, very careful with data. It's intrinsic to our value proposition as a company.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I don't see any other questions yet for you, but would you please put your, oh, here's one. Someone missed your description of what ITAD stands for.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, ITAD stands for IT Asset Dispositioning. It's become a kind of a watchword in our industry, ITAD. And ITAD Vets is an easy way to remember us. Our website is either VA Resourcing or ITAD Vets. Stands for IT Asset Dispositioning, and veterans is what we are. So we appreciate anybody that wants information about us. We've got our capability statement on file with Novovo, and would love to work with anybody that has a need.
That's perfect. Please put your contact information into the chat. And I also want to thank you so much for sharing your slide with the global footprint. That's important to many of our corporate allies who have locations, not just domestically, but across the globe. That was great for you to share your capabilities across the world. So thank you so much, Mike. Great job. Now I'm going to switch our presenter to John, and just a second. John Lutwak.
I'm here. If everybody can hear me okay.
Host. In a second, he's going to share his screen. So,
yep, I'm gonna go ahead and share. I guess I'll start first by giving a message of what our set of beliefs are and kind of the founding overview of our company. So I'm going to go ahead and play a video, and I know that I'm going to have to reshare this here in a way where you guys can hear the sound. So let me do that. All right, this will be about 2 minutes. Can you imagine a world where everyone in business and in life, everyone is inspired by the physical spaces they're in? We can, and that's why I started DHC Real Estate Services. As a veteran-owned business, we're not just a traditional real estate company. We operate with values forged through military service, and we do our work for a purpose. I believe that we exist to empower people and organizations to be the best at what they do. Real estate, it's not just something physical, it's something more. It's tactile, it's visceral. You're inside of it. It has a presence, it has color, it has light, it has a smell. You interact with real estate in everything that you do. A spa that's well designed can make you feel calm. A gym with the right design can actually increase your energy. We believe that where you do things makes a difference in how well you do those things. When you have the right environment, you can feel the impact. You can see an employee come in and be more creative, more passionate, more connected to the organization they work for. You can see a potential hire walk into a great workplace with a look on their face that says, I want to work here. Human beings, we crave a sense of belonging, of community, of culture. And when real estate is done right, it empowers people and organizations to be the best at what they do. And that's what we work for at DHC. That's what we do. So that's a little bit of an overview. And I know that sounds, especially in the context of the pandemic, it has upended the way that we think about how we work. But as we start to come out of it, I think things are starting to normalize and people are really asking a lot of questions about what is the future of workplace? What's the future of how we should operate? What's the future of retail? And that's a little bit about our firm. So let me just give you a backstory here, and hopefully everybody can see this okay. My name is John Lutwak. Before I started DHC Real Estate Services, I worked for 15 years at Cushman and Wakefield's world headquarters in New York City. In that capacity, I dealt primarily with occupancy solutions for Fortune 500 companies and for boutique investment firms. And it touched everything from office space to occasionally some other various commercial real estate services that included building sales or portfolio valuations and more. And in 2019, I had this idea to take my combat background, my military sort of thinking, and create a platform where we could bring a different type of discipline and process into what we do. Because I think what we do really matters. When you really get it right and you see an organization and the impact that it has, it just creates a unique feeling. And so I had this idea to start a company and do it in a slightly different approach and set it up as a service disabled veteran owned business. And I remember that first night waking up in the middle of the night with the realization that most of the firms who would benefit from a supply diversity side and who would benefit from what we do also require global scale execution and resources. And so I remember walking into Cushman Wakefield's management in New York in 2019 and saying, got bad news, I'm leaving. I've got worse news. It's going to take me a year to set up the new company I'm starting. But when we're done, you're going to get to be my partner nationally and globally. And that's what we did. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second and how that impacts people that we work with. What we do, tenant representation is the bread and butter of what we do. So if you're occupying office spaces, industrial, retail, warehouse, if you're occupying physical space, or if you're dealing with excess physical space and what is going to be the right path forward for the future, what's going to be the right flexibility, where should you be located, what are the tax implications of different markets, that's broad-based what we do in tenant representation. In that capacity, I've done work with AT&T, Goldman Sachs, a whole bunch of boutique investment banks. We've just won the IDIQ contract for the VA, and we're doing a whole bunch of GSA work too. So we do that for corporates as well as for government. Landlord representation is the other side of that equation. If you own physical spaces and you're looking to lease it, identify or maximize that value, we do that leasing work. We do facilities and property management. And then we do a whole bunch of other CRE services to include valuation, workplace strategy, culture change, and a whole bunch of consulting services around that. One of the things that makes us unique is this strategic partnership with Cushman and Wakefield. And it's a national strategic platform. And what that does is it allows us to wrap in boutique service, our discipline, process, and approach with global scale and resources of a $6 billion publicly traded firm. That's execution in any market worldwide, the way that you get with large. And what that means for any of the large corporates that may be listening now is we also enable you to include real estate services inside of your supply diversity portfolio in terms of service disabled veteran owned businesses without taking the risk that you sometimes have to take when working with a small business. And that means process, technology, and a differentiated level of service. And that is basically the story. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them now.
Thanks, John. Great presentation. So I'm sure that a number of our corporations are familiar and possibly even work with Cushman and Wakefield. What sort of conversation would they have with those folks about, or would they meet with you? How would you get involved with some of our corporate allies that may already have a relationship there?
It's a great question. And I'll tell you that almost every corporate has a relationship, right? Everybody who's occupying physical space has gotten there somehow. And a lot of times those things are 2 or 3 year agreement that we wrap. And I think the easiest answer is to just engage with me first, and then we can flush that out together and see if there's an opportunity to work together. This is not one of those things where you pick up the phone and all of a sudden there's a major headquarters transactions and we're engaged to work it. This is typically a multi-month, or a lot of times really multi-year process where we're building a relationship, understanding who your providers are currently, and finding areas where we may be able to differentiate, either by taking a piece of what your existing provider is doing or partnering with Cushman to bring in a different service. And it's really custom tailored to the company. And for anybody listening, the best introduction that you can make for me is anybody who runs your facilities or heads your real estate platform. If it's a smaller company, sometimes that sits in the chief operating officer or CFO, but typically there's entire real estate groups that deal with this. And I would appreciate any introduction to those folks. They would know exactly how to plug me in.
Okay, excellent. So bottom line, everyone, the relationship building's important to start that sooner than later. And John, reminder to please put your contact information in the chat. We've got a request for that. Let's just see if there are any other questions while I start to switch over our presenter. Oops. So Buddy I gotta turn John off and turn Buddy on. Okay, I don't see any other questions for John, so I'm going to assume we're ready to proceed and introduce you now to Buddy Gengler with Maybach Advisors. Take your mute off, please, Buddy.
Had to be that guy. I do it every time. Great to meet everybody. Thank you for making time for listening to these the stories of the fellow veteran-owned companies. My presentation is going to be pretty short because my business is pretty simple, but I think that there's a need for people, and compliance has become a larger part of business profiles and ESG reporting and things like that, which is part of what we do. First, I'm going to give you background. I actually I got hurt in Iraq in 2003 and was decided to get an MBA in New York, and then I worked for Ernst & Young at an accounting firm. I tell people that's where I got PTSD. That place was not the best fit, coming out of an environment where I felt like I had a tremendous amount of creative levity to, conduct operations and take initiative. And that environment, was capped off at Ernst & Young by getting a DVD player as a bonus. So I decided to move into the finance side of things, and I worked for an institutional asset manager at peak value, running about $1.5 billion in these credit-based high yield bond and bank loan structures that provided basically entree into a number of industries because we had to be diversified. So I learned about oil and gas, energy, healthcare, and really tried to pick credits, especially during the 2008 crisis, that would benefit our investors. I also ran a $300 million mezzanine fund that was backed by a public insurance company, and that fund invested directly in smaller companies with under 100 million of sales. While that was happening, I was introduced to the New York Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. I had a friend win a contract and said, "Hey, you should think about this government thing." And I was really surprised by what the opportunity could be. Using the designation to gain access and opportunity that you may not otherwise have. So I started by staffing individuals as project managers into various recovery projects, and also helping prime contractors with their compliance reporting on a state and federal level. And that grew out. What I also realized was I was trying to staff people into construction-oriented projects, and I felt after adjusting my plans that there's just so much more capital available on the capital construction and project level that I wanted to gain access to it. And one way I decided to do that was by entering a mentor-protege agreement with ULE Group. And they're a firm based out of New York with a couple warehouses. And they've dedicated a project manager to help assist my firm with larger orders. Because of those connections, I've landed wire and cable assemblies for the Department of the Navy, and on C-5 aircraft for the Air Force. And I've also picked up supply and staffing contracts with PSE&G, who's my largest customer and the power utility agent for the Long Island Power Authority. My long-term vision is to find those partnerships that are impactful and have a benefit to veterans in some way, whether it be veterans homelessness or mental health, and hopefully leave behind a legacy that that serves others, and that the business will continue to serve others, and to find partnerships that are meaningful to the bottom line, that deliver value, that would be there regardless of the designation. And I think I made that mistake early on when I was marketing my firm. I said, hey, I'm an SDVOB first, and by the way, I can do this. And as I've learned, it's probably better to say I can do this, and in addition to that, I'm an SDVOB. And that mindset really helped me clarify what I was looking for in partnerships and vendors and suppliers and customers. And it's helped me grow the business substantially in the last year or so. We have about 10 employees, and well, I say about, we have 10 employees, all full people. And we expect in the next year to be part of the MTA contract for congestion pricing, which I know New Yorkers aren't crazy about, but for some reason I'm in favor of it. And I have additional staffing contracts with Aerotech, which is a part of the Allegiant Group, which is a Fortune 500 company. We've provided cable, wire, and lighting to IKEA. And like I said before, a number of different projects we've supplied to PSE&G, both on the transmission side and on the business procurement side. So we've staffed everything from project managers, safety, health inspectors, accountants. We've built a really nice size network that gives options, A, and B, as a differentiator, we screen the clients heavily before we submit and make sure that their requirements meet the stated posting requirements, and we're not wasting clients' HR valuable time. My contact information, I'm going to put right in the window below. And the perfect people that I would like to speak to are HR oriented, especially if you have a project need or a short-term need where the person knows they're going to come in and do a job and move on to the next project. But where there's fit and opportunities, I've had a number of staffers go full-time for the client. And, you know, where I think a lot of people might say, oh man, that's terrible, I lost a contract. It's long-term, it's shown me that if you deliver people they want to hire internally, they'll call you again for the next one. And that's been my philosophy on the staffing side. So with that, I'm more than open to any questions you might have.
Terrific. Thank you. Nice presentation, buddy. Let's see. I don't have a question for you yet, but while we're waiting, please do enter in your, you just did it. Thank you. You want to put a phone number on there as well?
There's one third row down.
Not seeing it. Oh, I was going the wrong way. All right,
All right.
gotcha. Thank you very, very much. All right. Well, we have a few more minutes left. Let's give our audience time to post a couple more questions. Seems as though there's been some interest in a couple, and I'm happy that question for you from Arnie, wanting to know if you're having difficulty finding people.
You know, that's really interesting. I'm not having problems finding people. I'm having problems negotiating with people. And the perceived value of an individual for a position that seems cut and dry, of what the client should pay and what the person thinks they're worth are divergent right now. So I've had I have a project right now for a project manager and a safety officer for a major demolition project at an airport. And I'm on my third round of searches because the mix of people who are currently unemployed or the people who are employed and looking for something better are all converging on the same positions. So I think that's the challenge, but I think the right fit for the right person is out there, but I think by and large, we're paying more for the people.
Got it. Okay, very interesting. All right. Do we have anyone else who has a question for any of our presenters today? If not, I will remind you that the session's been recorded and it'll be available on the Novoba website, or I'm not exactly sure the link that you would follow, but we do store these. It'll either be on the Novoba website or on the Novoba YouTube channel, but we tried to save these so that if someone wasn't able to participate, they can still catch up. And with that said, I will, I'm not seeing any other questions. I just want to say thank you to everyone for your participation, your presentations today. And I want to thank our audience for their attention and for their thoughtful questions. So if there's nothing else, I will say have a wonderful rest of your Monday, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.